in a way that it's the right thing for us to be aware of. Some people will find it very interesting, some people less so, but something we need to be aware of. So, Brian, over to you. I'm not sure, is there a screen? Is there?
There is. I'm going to share my screen.
Cool.
If I drop out, nothing personal, Brian.
Okay.
Oh, it's different to yesterday, Rachel.
Sorry, can I just one thing, two things. But first thing, sorry, Mark, about that this morning. But just a message to everybody: if you do register after 9 on the morning of the event, you probably won't get a link sent to you because we send the link out 9 a.m. And if you're not on that the list of the tickets, then it sort of messes things up. But you can always go to the website, and on the website, the link should be there from 9 o'clock. And if it's not, speak to Paul. So anyway, just to let you know, and I know, sorry, Mark was trying to get in, and I sent him the wrong link from the other way, so apologies for that. But yeah, just for future reference for anybody, if you can still register on the morning, but if it's after 9, then you're probably not going to get the link sent unless we manually do it. So anyway, there's no mechanism sort of for that sort of thing. And the second one is just to let you know, we're recording the presentation. So yes, I can see Paul nudging me. That's something we have to remember to do. So yeah, we're recording it. What would we record is the presentation, and then maybe some of the Q&A. If you really don't want to be recorded, after, let us know. That's my bit. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
So I need to, yeah, okay, share screen.
So yes, I did a presentation on GDPR yesterday at Lewisham FSB. So apologies those who were there also. This is going to cover some of the same ground, but not all of it. So pay attention. So yes, we left the EU. How many of you thought that having left the EU, you no longer had to worry about GDPR? Quick show of hands. Excellent. Well, unfortunately for you, I will cover what's changed. So I took this photo myself, Christmas of 2019, just as that Brexit process was reaching the height of ridiculousness. And rightly or wrongly, we left the EU. That's why I thought, yeah, I'm not telling you how many days there are to Christmas, but that's the time of year that it happened. So we're out of the EU, as I said. Why am I worried about GDPR? Well, it was enshrined into UK law with the Data Protection Act in 2018. And then once we were out of Europe totally, we needed, the DPA was updated together with the Privacy and Electronic Communications Regulation to remove things like that the European Court of Justice had the ultimate power and anything else related to Europe to make it fully UK centric. So as of the 1st of January 2021, we have the GDPR, or the UK GDPR. As part of that, the UK government deemed that the EU has adequate data protection regulation in place and that data can flow from the UK to the EU as it has done while we were members of the EU. So this means that if you are trading with the EU, you're sending data to the EU, everything can continue as it currently has. The EU, on their wisdom, has not yet made an adequacy decision on the UK's data protection regulations. They're in the process of doing so. They promised to by the end of April, but said that if they hadn't done, the window would be extended to 6 months, during which data can continue to flow. So they're now promising to have made that decision by the end of next month, June. And like the Tower of London protects the crown jewels, we also need to protect our own crown jewels, which is your data. So the new status of the UK is that as far as the EU is concerned, we are a third country. This is the same as Switzerland and Norway locally, and Australia, New Zealand, the US, etc. In the wider world. So what does that actually mean? Well, while we were in the EU, the Information Commissioner's Office was our regulator for the whole of Europe, and the wider EEA, European Economic Association. That is no longer the case. So the ICO is just is our regulator in the UK. So if you, God forbid, suffer a data breach, and I really hope you don't, but come and talk to me if you do, and you lose data in the UK involving the personal data of EU citizens, it must be reported to our own Information Commissioner's Office and the relevant data protection regulator in the country or countries that the data you've lost comes from. And if you're offering goods and services and or monitoring the behavior of EU data subjects or citizens, and you have no physical office in the EEA, you need to appoint a representative in the EEA to act as a point of contact for the lead supervisory authorities and data subjects, and hold an Article 30 record, which is really the record, a data map of all the data that you're recording, who's responsible for it, and how long you hold it for. There'll be no surprise, I'm sure, that the legal profession has suddenly thought, oh, there's a business opportunity there. Let's set ourselves up as the representatives for companies from the UK who don't have a physical office in the EU or the EEA. You also need, if you have a fair proportion of your business still in the EEA, you need to have, obviously, our own ICO, who represents all companies in the UK. So every company that's processing personal data in the UK should be registered with the ICO. If you do it by direct debit, it's a 35 quid registration fee. Otherwise, it's a 40 quid registration fee. But if you're in the position where a good proportion of your business is still done with the wider EEA, you need a supervisory authority over in Europe as well. So you've got two regulatory authorities you need to be registered with. Many companies are selecting the Irish Data Protection Commission because it's the closest to the ICO. They speak English, and they operate in a very similar way to our own ICO. But you know, if you're just dealing with one country in Europe, so maybe you're dealing with I don't know, Germany or Poland as an example, you would need to select them as the German or the Polish regulatory authority as your European supervisory authority. So what is personal data? This is a reasonably comprehensive list, but by no means a total list of personal data, but it is anything that either individually or together put together can identify a living natural person. So it is obviously person's name, address, its email address, because the email address you normally will have first name, last name at an organization, and that can be used to identify a person. For Warren, it's a photograph. Photograph is personal data. And I draw your attention to the red post-it notes there. They are examples of what is called special category in the UK GDPR, or sensitive personal information in the EU GDPR, for obvious reasons. And they need a higher level of protection to the rest of personal data. So what's the risk? Well, at the top level, there's fines. There'll be fines from our own ICO for losing UK citizens' personal data. And if you're registered with a European regulator, there'll be fines from the European regulator as well for losing European citizens' personal data. And essentially, it's 2% of turnover or sales. And I draw your attention to that, turnover or sales, not profit, for losing the normal category of personally identifiable information, and 4% of turnover for losing special category personally identifiable information. From the ICO, it won't really be, they won't fine you on a first offence, but if you're a repeated offender, they will certainly look to levy fines. And, you know, 2 or 4% of turnover, whether it's us as small businesses or British Airways, that's a significant chunk of your turnover, and will certainly bite into your profits. British Airways were originally fined 80 million for repeated offences, 80 million pounds for repeated offences. Because of COVID, they appealed and it's been reduced to 20 million. But even 20 million is a significant proportion of their turnover in the COVID era. So looking at it from an operational point of view, what's the risk? Well, it's data loss, having erroneous personal data. So whether that's data you've had for a significant period of time and is out of date, so no longer up-to-date email addresses, whether it's human error in inputting the data, or it's somebody behaving with a malicious intent and changing personal data, or for instance, somebody leaving your organization and downloading all your business contacts. Inappropriate access to data, so not properly controlling who has access to the data. Having no lawful basis for processing the data. So you're collecting the data, and this is really combined with the next point. You're collecting more data than you really need. So you may just need name, email address, and their business, for instance. But you go on to collect some of the special category data as well. But you don't need that for the purpose of what you're doing. You know, somebody's gender is not, well, maybe somebody's gender is required for marketing, but whether their political party membership, for instance, wouldn't be required for marketing. More personal data than required for your legitimate person basis is collected and stored, and storing personal data for longer than you actually need it. The GDPR actually says that you should only keep personal data for the length of time that you need it. So look, if somebody makes an inquiry through your website, for instance, and then they become a customer, you've then got an ongoing relationship with them. You're sending out invoices, which goes into your accounting system. You need to keep that data for 6 years. If somebody makes an inquiry through your website, they then don't become immediately a customer. You've then got to make a decision and justify, pardon me, the keeping of that data. I would suggest that keeping data, personal data for somebody who didn't become a customer is 2 years would be a reasonable amount of time, because they could come back 6 months later, but 2 years later, it's probably unlikely they're going to come back. So how do we manage the risk? Well, you thought the CIA was the Central Intelligence Agency of the US. Well, I wouldn't rely on them to protect your data, because their security has been a bit like Swiss cheese recently. So CIA, in my world, stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your personal data. And it's really is a pyramid. And as we see, so examples of confidentiality, of keeping data confidential, is having strong access controls around your data. I would suggest, especially if you're keeping special category data, you have two-factor accreditation around the systems that keep personal data, making sure you define roles and responsibilities for your staff, your team, so that they have least access to the data to perform their jobs. They don't have more access to the data than is required to perform their job. Look at your website security, protecting both personal data and payment data. And encryption is another example, having the data encrypted wherever it is stored. Integrity of the data, making sure that privacy and cookie policies, the cookies don't share the data to third parties that you're not aware of. And making sure you're keeping the data private, as I said. Making sure that you've got acceptable use policies, information security policy, data protection policy, data retention policy, and for instance, having checksums on input to make sure that the data is input in its entirety. And then availability. So making sure you keep backups. Now, I'm sure a lot of us all use Microsoft 365. And we think, oh, Microsoft will be doing backups. Yes, Microsoft mirror your data. But if you accidentally delete that critical spreadsheet and then go and ask Microsoft for it back, well, good luck, because it's pretty unlikely you'll get it back. You should really be keeping separate backups of your 365 data and all your data, so that if you do lose that, you know that you lose that critical spreadsheet, you know you can get it back. Making sure you've got antivirus, anti-malware, and anti-ransomware software on all your servers, all your computers, and any other device you use to access your data. So your mobile phones, tablets, etc. And making sure that all your devices are patched regularly. So Microsoft, once a month, have what they call Patching Tuesday, where they release all the critical patches for that month. If you're on Macs, Apple also have a monthly security update. So it's making sure that all your devices have the capacity as well, the space available, to make sure that the antivirus software is updated daily, and all the patches are received and update your software. Then making sure you've got a disaster recovery plan and a cyber incident plan. If you need assistance, these are my contact details. You know where to reach me. I'll put them in the chat as well. So yeah, is there any? Over to Q&A now.
Thank you very much, Brian. That's
Yeah,
really interesting.
Brian, can I ask a question? If
You may.
if you're just collecting information, basic fundamental information about clients, so you've got contact details and any other relevant bits of information, and is there a kind of a cloud application that you can store it in, which navigates all the GDPR things for you? For example, it would, if you intend to retain their information beyond sort of 2 years and you haven't had any contact with them, does it then contact them to see if they're happy for you to keep that information, or delete them? Is there, what I want to know, is there a third party kind of bit of software that does that for you?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Gap in the market then.
So yes, there's business opportunity there. There may be, but there's not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Brian? Hi, Warren. Warren here.
Hi, Warren.
You mentioned something about the photos. Now, I was under the impression that a photograph, and maybe I'm on different ground here, has to be identified. A photograph on its own isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, but together, together with other information, that would identify a person.
Yeah. Okay. But a photo on its own, it's not a breach as such. And I'm sort of thinking about. I know, when photographs are published, there's obviously a differentiation between editorial and advertising. But I don't know if that's sort of crossover. But yeah, I was under the assumption that maybe it's an older law, but I should be up to
yeah, the Data Protection Act definitely says that an image of a person is personal data,
even if there's no name or anything to identify.
Yeah. I'll send you the relevant paragraph.
Yeah, because this comes into then sort of privacy laws, surely. But I mean, I'm just thinking about because as far as again, there's no change. But if you standing on public land, you can photograph anybody and use that picture within reason, unless you're representing them in a bad light or whatever. I don't know, but otherwise that would stop all news photographers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I think. You've raised an interesting point there. Yeah, if you're out and about and somebody just happens to be in front of your lens as you take a photograph in Greenwich Park or something, you're not. Yeah, and you don't. Yeah, obviously you don't know them. That is then. It would be very difficult to justify that as being personal data.
I think it comes under crowds as well, depending on how many people. I think I did a job while ago, they wanted model releases off people that, you know, unless they're actually, I remember now, it was the Greenwich Docklands International Festival, and they were saying if I've got a crowd of people, obviously I can't identify all of them, but if there's any individuals I should get some sort of permission from them, whatever, because they use it for marketing. I mean, I know, I realise there's some grey areas as well, you know, but editorial you sort of find if you're on private land, then yeah, there was a famous one of these guys thought they had a six-figure sum of David Beckham in his underpants until they found out they were standing on private land and they could use the picture. Sorry, gutted, eh?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I had a question. When you use, for example, customers' reviews and feedback as your marketing material, is that fine? I mean, obviously you would have asked them their permission to actually publish their reviews on the website, but I mean, is there?
Yes, one of the key parts of GDPR is obtaining consent from the data subject, i.e. the person, and making sure you document that consent.
Okay.
And then yes, once you've got their consent, you can publish people's reviews.
Okay.
But it is a buy-in consent. You can't. It's not an opt-out consent. If that makes sense.
I suppose the other point in relation to housekeeping, I suppose, Brian, would be, you know, there's a time frame as well. You know, keeping say a customer review from 10 years ago. Now that can reflect your business, but also that person may have forgotten that they did business with you, and that data itself becomes quite old because it's a longer time since they were your customer.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So are there any other questions for Brian? Because I thought let's jump into some more breakout rooms. Maybe if we discuss, well, one was